Welcome and good evening to Copperfield's Books virtual event with Amalia Andrade, Kristina Kuzmic, and Kathryn Nicolai. My name is Jamie Madsen, and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Copperfield's Books, and I will also be your host for the evening. Copperfield's Books has been committed to literature, education, and creating community together since our founding in 1981. I'm thrilled to remind everyone that all 9 of our stores are open for both inside service and curbside pickup. And I also like to take a moment at the beginning of our events to thank you all for supporting us through COVID-19. It's been such a struggle for all small businesses and in particular independent bookstores. And without people like you coming onto our events and purchasing the event book, we would not be able to have this free program. So for that, we are very grateful here at Copperfield's. Just a quick housekeeping item before we get started. We will be using the chat box to provide links to view upcoming Copperfield's events, links to purchase the titles by tonight's authors, and we'll also include my contact details for follow-up information. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce tonight's speakers. Amalia Andrade was born in Cali, Colombia in 1986. She's written for several magazines in both Colombia and the United States. She believes strongly in the power of keeping a diary. When she grows up, she wants to be a mix between Sylvia Plath and Tina Fey. Love that. She lives in Bogota and with her cats and is the author of You Always Change the Love of Your Life. Kristina Kuzmic was born in Croatia and is a world-renowned speaker known for her unique insight and humor on family-related topics. She currently lives in Southern California with her husband, where her most important, rewarding, and exhausting careers include being a sanitation engineer, a chef, a chauffeur, and conflict resolution guru for her 3 clients, which are her children. And Kathryn Nicolai is the creator of the enormously successful podcast, Nothing Much Happens. Nicolai is an architect of coziness, writing soothing stories that both ease the reader into peaceful sleep and teach the principles of mindfulness. She's the owner of Ethos Yoga and lives in Michigan with her wife and 2 dogs. They are with us tonight to help curb pre-election jitters in a time of heightened anxiety. And when is a more perfect time than right after tonight's debates? Tonight, these trusted authors will take you through exercises aimed to help you manage any stress you may be feeling before the election. So with that, I'm thrilled to hand it over to you, Kathryn. Why don't you take us away?
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to be here with my fellow authors and talk you through some practices for calming down and getting centered. And before we start, I want to explain just a little bit about how my work works. I write bedtime stories for grown-ups, and I use narrative as a way to teach people how to apply mindfulness in their daily life when they're awake, but also as a way to help them ease themselves into sleep. It's a self-soothing technique. And it's one that I taught myself as a 4-year-old child. I was born in Flint, Michigan, which is very well known now for having, unfortunately, continually polluted water. The water there is still polluted. But even in the 80s, it was not a very easy place to live. And I think even as a child, I needed a way to find a safe place to feel secure. And I used my imagination and storytelling to fall asleep. And I've never stopped. I've done it my whole life. And I have always felt like I have sort of a superpower that I can fall asleep and I can go back to sleep if I wake in the middle of the night. And I want to explain a little bit of the brain science behind this. It's really easy to understand in short. So you basically have something called your default mode network. It happens in both lobes of your brain, and it's basically what your brain is doing when it isn't doing anything else. It's your default mode. It's sort of the underground programming that's just running. And when this programming is kicked in, you tend to do things like ruminate, worry, predict, catastrophize, When you feel yourself wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you start spiraling through all the possibilities and all the things that have gone wrong in the past, you are in your default mode network, DMN. Think of it as your demon. But the good news is that you can shift out of your default mode just by giving your brain a job to do. This is called the positive task network. So your brain is hungry for work, and it can really only do one thing at a time. We all think we can multitask, but actually that's not how brains work. It really can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you give your brain a job to do, it will have to shift out of that rumination. This is what helps us fall asleep at night and go back to sleep when we wake in the middle of the night. So I'm going to teach you a short meditation that you can use just as a meditation or as a way to create your own sort of bedtime story, safe, happy place. So that if you wake up tonight in the middle of the night, instead of just spinning your wheels, you direct your car in the direction you want to go and step on the gas. So before we start, let's just do a little bit of a relaxation technique. If you have glasses like me, if you can just push them up on top of your head for a second. Bring your hands together in front of you and let's just rub them back and forth for a few moments. You actually want to get a little bit of heat and friction between your hands, so don't be afraid to go kind of fast. Now let's take a deep breath in through the nose. As you sigh, hands over eyes. Stay right there for a moment. Just let the weight, the heat of your hands, the darkness be a simple way to soothe you. And now, kind of like you're washing your face, just start to use your fingertips to massage over your brow, around your jaw, around your cheekbones. This brings the blood to the surface. It's kind of stimulating, but relaxing at the same time. You're going to put both palms flat on either side of your face and pretend you're in that scream painting and just drag your hands straight down your face. It is really good for your jaw. I didn't just make it up. And release your hands back down. Roll your shoulders up into your ears. Take another big breath. Sigh it out, shoulders down your back. Okay. We made a little dent. I'm going to have you just close your eyes. Now, this is a little bit of a writing activity, and if you have a journal and a pen nearby, you can use it. If you want to do all of this in your mind, you can. And I want to say quickly, too, that I'm talking about using your imagination, and I might even use terms like visualize, but if you can't see things in your mind, don't worry about it. I have a condition called aphantasia. It means I cannot visualize anything. My inner eye is completely blind. I have it too. It doesn't stop me from doing these kind of meditations. It's just a way of speaking about it. Think through the details if you can't actually see it. So close your eyes. And the first step here, we're basically going to build a teeny tiny little bedtime story that will become a nest you can rest your mind in later. And the first step, I just want you to focus on finding a location, a place where you feel safe, where you feel naturally relaxed. It might be where you are right now. It might be a place you only get to visit every now and then, but don't overthink it. Go with your very first instinct. And just hold the idea of that place in your mind for a few moments. Nice. If you've got your journal handy, just write down the name of the place. I own a yoga studio, and I'm going to write my yoga studio. I spend a lot of time all by myself in that room sometimes because it feels so safe. Pencils down and eyes closed. You've got your location. Now I want you to think about how the light looks in that place. Maybe it's by the water and there's bright sunlight. Or maybe it's in front of your fire in the winter, or in your bedroom and the light is dim. As soon as your mind wanders away, just bring it right back. What's the light look like in this space? Nice. Let's just write a few words if you've got your journal, just maybe 3 or 4 words about the light. Pencils down and eyes closed. Go back to your location. You know what the light feels like. Now I want you to think through, imagine, what are the sounds in this space? Maybe it's quite quiet with just the sound of the atmosphere. Or maybe traffic or other people. If your quiet, happy space is your kitchen, maybe there's a simmering pot on the stove. Don't overthink it. Just be with it for a few moments. And then write 3 or 4 words about how it sounds in your space. Pencils down, eyes closed. You're in the location. You know how the light looks. You know how it sounds. Think about the textures. Maybe there's thick carpeting or old wood floors, velvet curtains, a soft blanket. What are the textures of this space? And write a few words about it. Nice. Close your eyes, go back in. Each time we do this, each time we turn your attention back to this space, you're building a stronger habit, a more readily used go-to response. You know the location, how the light looks, the sounds in the room, how things feel. Notice if there are smells, scents, if there's a taste, if any of that is connected to this space. Maybe when you're in it, there's a food you eat or a tea you drink or a candle you light. And write a few words about how it smells or tastes in this space. Pencils down, eyes closed. Go back. You know the location, how the light feels, how it sounds, the textures, the smells, the tastes. Now populate the space with just a few more things. Maybe there's a favorite chair, a cushion you meditate on, a bench you sit on by the water. The more rich, the more details your space has, the easier it will be to sink your teeth into it, to pull your mind out of default mode and into task mode. Write down 3 or 4 things, objects that are in the room with you. Nice. Close your eyes, go back in. You know the location, the light, the sounds, the textures, the smell, the taste, the surroundings and objects. We've set the scene, and now we just need the slightest bit of action, just a little bit of plot to move through. Maybe it's you arriving in the space and finding a place to sit. Maybe it's you turning a lock on a door and feeling safe inside. Or if you're in your kitchen, setting a pot on the stove, boiling water for tea. Just write one line about what you do in this space. Nice. Close your eyes, set your pencil down. Put it all together for yourself. This really rich world you've built in just a few minutes. A place where you feel really safe, relaxed. Not just safe physically, but safe to be who you are. Safe to show how you feel. I often find it quite useful to give these little bundles of moods a title so that when I wake in the middle of the night, I can say the title. So if your story has a title immediately apparent to you, write it across the top of your page. Mine's called At the Studio. Let's bring hands together in front one more time. Build up some heat, some friction. Take a deep breath in. As you sigh, hands on eyes. Good. Thanks for sharing that with me. I'm going to hand it over to Amalia. She's muted.
Thank you. That was awesome. You have the most soothing voice. I could fall asleep That's a compliment in the middle of this. This is amazing. Thank you so much. And I just bought your book. I'm so excited about it. So what I'm going to be talking about is about fear. So basically, I think we have this really bad relationship, not only with fear, but with actually all of our feelings, especially those that don't seem to be as comfortable as we are used to. So for example, we are taught very early on that we need to be happy, we need to celebrate joy, we need to celebrate success, determination, being positive. That is something that is highly celebrated in society. On the other hand, things like sadness, fear, depression, anxiety are feelings that are condemned as bad feelings, or feelings that you should feel in private, and that you shouldn't speak of them as much. And I think that is just crazy that we live in a society that tell us that there are good feelings and bad feelings. There's no such things. They're just feelings, and they're all good. They make us human. And so what I would like for us to do is to speak about the other side of fear. So fear is a very uncomfortable feeling. And that's the reason why we don't have a really great relationship with it. It feels bad. It makes you want to run because there's that fight or flight instinct. It activates, it makes your hands sweaty, it makes your heart go fast, and you just want it to be over. Fear is not something that we're taught to be okay within our bodies, within our hearts, in our emotions, in our souls. But there's, I think it's a really bad thing that we live in this society that has demonized fear so bad. Why? Well, basically because it is a very good human feeling. It's an inbuilt system of survival that we have, and it's there for a reason. But on the other hand, because it has made us not question fear. So what happens is that we are living in a world that is so obsessed with good, what it's called good feelings like happiness or love, that we are very well informed about how love works and how it feels and many other things. It's in movies, it's in songs, it's everywhere. Love is everywhere, basically. But then fear is not there very much, right? And I'm not talking about Stephen King or Halloween. That doesn't count as fear. Fear is, for example, when you fear commitment, when you stop doing something because you fear failure. That's the kind of fear I want to get to. So fear is so uncomfortable to us, and we've been taught not to feel it, not to talk about it, that we don't think about how fear works. And that is the reason that fear gets so much of a hold out of us. Sorry if my English is not very good looking. But basically what we need to do is we need to understand fear, because that's the way we're gonna, and I don't wanna use the word conquer it or beat it or fight it. You're gonna be friends with your fear, and you're gonna understand that your fear is actually an amazing tool. It's gonna help you achieve great things, and you're gonna relate to it in a much better way. So basically, we're gonna start just a quick description of what fear is. Fear works when you're afraid of something, or when you are really worried about an outcome. Basically, those are the main scenarios. We all experience and deal with fear in different ways. But what we need to do is we need to see how it works in order to outsmart it. The reason why fear is so paralyzing is because we don't have the enough tools to outsmart fear, basically, and let it not paralyze us. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna do, if you have a paper, we're gonna do the most obvious thing I can think about, and is a small list of things that you haven't done because of fear. So what we're gonna do basically is explore very punctual, if that's how you said correctly, or very specific situations in which fear has paralyzed you. So go ahead and write some. I'm gonna write in here. And because this is like a TV show and I've been wanting to do this my whole life, like in those cook shows where they already have the cake ready, boom, I'm ready. So I'm gonna read you guys a list of things I haven't done because of fear, and the idea is that you write this down. It is important that you write it down because fear has a lot of power when it stays in our body and in our minds. So it's very important, it's very powerful that you take it out of your body. So for example, I haven't got to important literary festivals as an invited panelist because I'm very afraid of airplanes. I haven't visited beautiful landmarks in Colombia, and I have spent weekends, spent weekends at friends' country houses or go on road trips because I fear getting dizzy in a car. Colombia is it has like really curvy highways, so it's awful. The thing I haven't done more is I haven't talked about my fear because I fear of my fears coming true as soon as I say them out loud. I fear, or I haven't told somebody what I really feel about that person neglect. This is because I fear confrontation. I haven't been honest with somebody regards how her reactions hurt me because I fear vulnerability or I fear being ridiculed. I haven't crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, actually, because of fear of heights and fear of crossing the street. And I haven't eaten things like oysters, brains, or any kind of tartare because I fear vomiting. So I think it's very easy, and I could go on and on and on about the things I haven't done because of fear, and in the ways that fear has paralyzed me. But what I want to talk about next is the ways in which fear is actually good. So fear actually can lead you to amazing things. The first thing is that you can be more sensible. You know, that heightened sense of awareness that you get just before a panic attack. I'm going to take the panic attack out of this equation. But when you have fear, you can be much more aware of your surroundings and the place that you are, and you can be more aware about your own body and your relationship with your body and your mind. A good way I like to describe anxiety attacks is when your body gets an exaggerated reaction and your mind copy that signal and says like something's going on, there's this immediate threat when there's no threat, and then your mind starts copying that information and starts reading your body sensations as something very catastrophic, and then you get trapped in that. When you hijack that, and a way you can do that is by practicing grounding, by practicing just where you are, or just by listening to Kathryn podcast. You can cut that thing, and you can but you are still blessed with the ability of being someone very sensitive. Celebrate that sensibility that fear or anxiety has given you, and embrace it as being more aware of the place you have in this world. Secondly, fear is definitely the best tool for self-knowledge. We think of fear as something that is very actually simple, or we actually don't think of it at all because of what I just said. So what happens if you start thinking about your own fears? What does it mean that you fear snakes? Where did that start? How long has it been going? What do you think is at the root of your fear? If you really want to get to know yourself, ask the hard questions about your fears. And I actually tell all of my friends when they're going on dates, don't ask somebody what the toppings they like on their pizza. Ask what they're afraid of. That is something that really gives you information about who or how someone really is. So remember, if you ask the tough questions on fear, on your own fears and on other fears, even on the fears a country has, you can get to the bottom of what really is in there. You can gain knowledge and self-knowledge. And remember, self-knowledge and knowledge are the power. So another way in which I think, and scientists believe that fear is amazing is that when you are fearful, you will go and seek preparations and you will go and seek facts. So, for example, I am very afraid of airplanes. I don't really like them. So what I do, and this is a very funny thing, I spend a lot of time talking to pilots, to air pilots, and I know all the names of the planes, and I can, I can see picture and I can say, oh, that's Airbus 320, or that's a Boeing Dreamliner. And the reason why I know so much about airplanes is not actually because I like them, it's because I don't. But when I am prepared and I have the fact, I have control over my fear. So fearful persons or people in general who have a good relations with their fears, you can understand that you are someone who is gonna be better prepared and that you're gonna know more facts than other people. So your fear is gonna give you that. I'm gonna talk about another one, fear of failure. I suffer from that very much. So how is that good for me? It makes me prepare much. It makes me push myself and it makes me set higher targets. So in a way, that fear of failure, if it's not paralyzing, it's gonna help me achieve things. So remember that. And basically, just those are some examples. But the last one I want to give you, and that is for me the most important, is anger. Fear can lead to anger, and anger can lead to mobilization. When fear is so bad, you want things to change. You want things to not stay that way. And I think the world right now needs mobilization. You need to ask the hard questions on your fears and the fears the world is having in order to understand how fear works, what is the root behind fears, and that's the way that you can, mobilize and make changes. So actually, fear can push you to do many things, and it can push you to, change the world, change your life. Now it's time for another writing sessions. Are you ready? I feel like Sofia Vergara, you guys. I bet she speaks better English than me. No, I'm not. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is to think of a list of things that you did thanks to fear. So I'm gonna write. Okay, look, the cake is ready. I'm ready. So I'm gonna read you a list of things that I did thanks to my fear. I wrote this book that it's called Things You Think About When You Bite Your Nails, and it's a workbook about fear and anxiety. I sent a text to a girl and asked her out, and she's my wife now. I spoke in front of more than 300 people. I was so afraid of speaking of people that I worked so hard to get to do it, and now I do it on a regular basis. I used to do it before the pandemic. I actually quit a job that was making me unhappy because I was so afraid that that was what my life was gonna look like. So I quit and now I'm happy. I learned how to cook, and that was because of my fear of dying of hunger. I got on a plane, and that was because of my fear of not visiting new places. I got to know new streets in my neighborhood, and that was as a way to avoid large avenues because, as I said before, I am afraid of crossing the street. So I hope this was good for you guys. I hope you realize that fear has another side and that fear can be a very powerful tool. Thank you. Now, Kristina, it's your choice. It's your turn, sorry.
Hi, first of all, I want to say I'm so honored to be on this panel. Kathryn and Amalia, I can't wait to read your books. I bite my nails a lot too, so your title I can relate to. So my book, hold on, but don't hold still. The first two sentences in my book are, there's a name for when things don't work out the way you thought they would. It's called life. And that has been so true for my life. What's interesting is in my book, I wrote about dealing with depression and suicidal thoughts when I was a young mom, and divorce and parenting my children through various stages, and poverty and all these things. And I thought this stuff was sort of in my past. And then when 2020, our favorite year ever, hit, it was interesting to see how many of these lessons that I was sharing for other people who were struggling, I all of a sudden needed to revisit. So I want to cover sort of two different things. Originally, I was just going to share with parents who are watching an activity that they could do with their kids during this time, especially pre-election or during the election. But then I realized just from my followers on social media, how much people who don't have kids and never planning on having kids are struggling. And I realized there are certain practical things that I used when I was at my lowest point that I really think could help people. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to try and fit both in. So first of all, this is one of my favorite exercises, especially during this time, to do with children. And the best part is you can do it with children of any ages. I think during any election, things get tense and there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of stress. I think this year in the United States, it seems even bigger and louder and just heavier than ever, at least in my lifetime. And so it's really important to me to teach my children to have strong opinions and to have a voice and use that voice, but also to know how to use it in a kind way, but still strong. Kind is not weak, kind is strong. To be brave, and to know what they're talking about, to do their research. So one thing you parents can do with your kids on family night is give your kids a couple days or even longer and have each child pick something they're really passionate about, and they're going to present it to the whole family, and then they can take questions. Now for teenagers, this might be LGBTQ issues, or it might be an environmental issue that they're passionate about. For little kids, like my 6-year-old, it might be why the chocolate chip cookie is definitely the best cookie in the whole wide world. And then instead of just talking about it, make sure that they're answering why. Why are they passionate about this? Maybe they can make a PowerPoint presentation, or, a little kid who's passionate about cookies can bake 3 different cookies and prove why this cookie is the best cookie. But this way, we are teaching our children that having opinions is a good thing. We're teaching them how to present those opinions. And we're also challenging them by having the Q&A where we're asking them questions and teaching them to A, stand up for what they believe, but B, be open to another point of view. This tends to be really fun because kids are so much smarter than us and so much more creative because they haven't given into all the outside voices that are influencing how we think and, our insecurities and all this stuff. So I feel like there's always something really great to learn from this. The other thing that is sort of related to this, and you can use it on these family nights or just anytime you are trying to teach your children empathy, which, hello, we need more of, and how to, argue their point, but also hear other people. When my kids were younger and they would argue, I started doing this thing where I would have them sit across from each other and they would have to switch roles and argue the other person's perspective. So what happens a lot of times when kids disagree, whether it's what kind of music are we going to listen to in the car, or which game should we play for family night, or who was right about this random thing, is there's a lot of anger and they're annoyed. But when you have them switch and have to argue the other person's point of view, it ends up being one of the funniest things you'll ever watch, because it's really hard for them to contain not laughing when they're arguing a point from their brother or sister. And by the way, this works really well in marriage too. My husband and I sometimes use this. But also beyond just the fact that it sort of calms and adds laughter to a tense situation, it teaches empathy, because having to argue somebody else's point of view suddenly literally makes you walk in their shoes for a few seconds or minutes. And it's a great way to just really try to genuinely understand why somebody thinks the way they do. And I believe even on non-election years, we need more of that. Okay, so those are my ideas for your kids and your marriage. Try it. Next time you're arguing with your partner, try having to switch arguments. Like when I'm having to argue why we should watch a football game, it's the most painful thing for me ever. Okay, so here are a couple things that I found that I wrote about in my book that I'm applying right now. One of them is when I was in really like the depth of my misery and I became completely self-consumed. And anybody who has struggled with depression, grief, financial struggles, probably pretty much anything that 2020 has thrown our way, when you're in the midst of it, it feels permanent. It feels very, very permanent. We get so stuck in it that we literally can't even see past today. And so what I started doing is I started adding 2 simple words to the end of every worrisome sentence, every worrisome feeling I felt. And the words were right now. So I am really, really struggling financially right now. This divorce is so excruciatingly painful right now. I am so depressed that I want to take my life right now. Meaning, or even in parenting, my teenager hates me right now. I'm not getting enough sleep because my toddler doesn't want to sleep right now. Adding those 2 simple words suddenly makes you realize you might not feel that way tomorrow. You might not feel that way a year from now. That problem that you're struggling through now might not be a problem years from now. Somehow it takes away the permanence. And I feel like if you do it enough, it will become a habit. Right now, because I've done it for so many years, it's literally become a habit where the smallest little thing I worry about, my brain immediately goes into right now. Because a bad year or 2 or 5 doesn't equal a bad life. It equals a bad year or 2 or 5. And so I urge you, and also teach your kids to do that, to add that right now. Here's another one. I think anytime, you know, life is always stressful. Life always has its stressors. But then when all this extra stuff is added our way, like 2020 has done so in such a lovely way, we tend to think about all the things we can't do and all the things that are out of our control. We all have long to-do lists and we're not getting everything done. And we don't feel like we did that well enough, or we didn't handle that well enough, or, you know, we overthink everything. And the more life adds stress, the more we start to bully ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. I always think life's hard stuff is less hard if we're not so hard on ourselves. We add to it, right? And so I started, instead of focusing on that long to-do list and of, you know, things I didn't get done or things I did wrong, I started writing ta-da lists. So again, this is something you can do. This is something you can encourage your kids to do. At the end of the day, instead of staring at that long list of things you didn't do, or going over in your head of all the things you did wrong or handled awkwardly, start listing in your head the ta-da list, or even write it down if you keep a journal. What is my ta-da list? This morning, I really felt depressed. I was struggling, but I still rolled out of bed and I made breakfast and I got my kids what they needed and I answered that email. All these little things we do that we overlook as if they're nothing, they are something. We are still showing up for our life. So keep a ta-da list. And on that same way of retraining your brain to think in a positive way, I write in my book this story about how when I'm naturally a pessimist. There's an entire chapter in my book called Recovering Pessimist, because I'm still in recovery and I always will be. I struggle with it daily. But I realized when I had my kids that my oldest sort of had that too, where he was thinking, always just finding the negative. And so I kind of out of the blue one day, as my kids were in the backseat of the car and they were complaining about something and I'm driving, I said, you know what, kids? I just came up with a new game. It's called Yeah, But. I want you to vent. I want you to express everything you feel. If you're mad about something, if you're sad about something, you got to express it, because suppressing your feelings, I don't believe is ever a path to anything positive. So express it. But once you get it out, I'm going to say, yeah, but, and then you have to follow it with something positive. And it started as simple as my son was complaining that they lost their soccer game and I'm so mad and the other team didn't play fair and blah, blah. And he got it all out. And I said, yeah, but, and he said, but I love my coach. And we have another game next Saturday. And it was just these little things that, again, seem so simple, but what it does is it lets you find the positive even in the mess. So this is something, again, you can do, you should encourage your kids to do, especially, again, when life feels so chaotic. Okay, another one. When this crazy year is over, and it will be, it's not permanent, it's right now. Everything we're going through, it's right now. When it is over, I want you to have with you a reminder of what you survived, because every single person listening right now has managed the unmanageable. You have managed the unmanageable. And I personally think that we need reminders of that when we're out of it, because A, that builds gratitude. And two, when another unmanageable situation happens, we have a reminder that it is manageable. So for example, in my wallet, I still carry my old food stamps card. I have it right behind my credit card so that every single time, now, by the way, this has not been active for over a dozen years, but I kept it as a reminder that when things seemed unmanageable, that when I was worried about how I was going to put food on the table for my children, when my rent was late and I was worried I was going to be homeless, I managed the seemingly unmanageable. And so now every time I pull my credit card in a store to pay for anything, this is the first thing I see, and it's a reminder. So think tonight, is there something from this year, a simple note, whatever it is in your life that will remind you of this year and the chaos you have survived? Keep it. Keep it somewhere where you will see it for the rest of your life as a reminder that it was right now and that you can manage what seems unmanageable. Okay, I want to tell you one more quick story before we run out of time. So I grew up in Croatia, and when I was 12 years old, a war started there, and it was just devastating. And I lived in a city, Osijek, where every little village around our city was occupied, and they were trying to get our city. So there were just grenades and bombs being thrown at my city. And there is this man named Zorislav Laksar. He had never taken an art class in his life, but he was just so devastated with what was happening to our country that after every attack, he would walk around where, bombs and grenades were thrown, and he would just look through all that rubble, and he would start picking up shrapnel from grenades, and he would just collect it. He would take it home and he would build statues out of it, because he wanted to take this ugliness and turn it into some kind of beauty. And I am fortunate enough to have one of his statues, and I want to show it to you. And if you guys follow me, you probably have seen this in a video or two. But this is a statue completely made from shrapnel. This is literally created from something that destroyed homes, that killed people. And I don't know how well you can see it, but it's a mother, and she's got her logs of wood, and she's got a bag of groceries. She's got a little child. He even made a little teddy bear, a doll that the child is carrying. And it's just this gorgeous piece of art. So I keep this where I can always see it. And to me, this statue represents that I can take all the little pieces in my life that seem destroyed, the plans that seem ruined or canceled, the dreams that fell apart, the things that I was so hopeful for, maybe even this year, that were taken away. And it reminds me to take all that stuff, and instead of just passively staring at it and dwelling and feeling like there's no hope, to not allow the few things that are completely out of my control to control me completely, and to instead find a way to pick up those pieces that feel destroyed, that feel ugly, that feel chaotic, and ask myself, is there something beautiful I can build out of this? So that's what I want to leave you with. Whatever you're struggling through, whatever this year has brought you, just ask yourself, what is your sculpture? What can you build? out of whatever life has thrown your way. And back to Jamie.
That was so fantastic. Thank you all so much. I know I am in such a different headspace than I was an hour ago after trying to squeeze in, some political debates. I just can't thank you guys enough. For all of you wondering, of course, this is being recorded and will be available via YouTube tomorrow. I will also be sending around a follow-up email with links to purchase, the link for YouTube, as well as more information about the authors. So look out for that. I want to give you guys a couple moments to wrap up with any last minute thoughts or, just give a chance to say goodbye.
It was such an honor, you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathryn. Thank you so much, Kristina. And thank you so much, Jamie, for having me.
Yeah, I feel like this was a great discussion. I was just excited to listen in. I kind of, after a while, forgot that I'd been part of it. I was like, oh, this is a really fascinating discussion. I really appreciated hearing both your perspectives, and thanks, Jamie, for having me.
Yeah, this was so fun. Thank you. I learned so much from both of you. And again, I can't wait to read your books, and just honored to be part of this.
And it's so great. We're going international here. So hopefully in the next, I don't know, I guess a couple years, we can try and get you all back into Copperfields under one roof. But thank you so much again. And thank you to all of you who attended. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the near future. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.